This video is to give you an idea that if you go ahead and you rent a boat, and generally speaking they are 1 week rentals going from Saturday to Saturday. That's the system. It goes from Saturday to Saturday. So if you are in Greece and it happens to be a Wednesday, you're going to have to wait till the weekend before you can go out. So that's the system. At any rate, I'll get into a little bit more detail. I'll do a separate video on what my real impressions were about the sailing thing, and in general it can be a little bit on the boring side, and I do think that a lot of it is a sold idea. This idea of, oh, how romantic, let's go to Greece and rent the sailboat. Well, on paper it sounds pretty good, but in reality it's a lot of sitting around, and depending on the weather you do not get a credit, you do not get your money back if there is no wind at all and all you did was motor the entire time. Anyway, let's get into this video. So part of the system that they seem to have established is that if you've got wind you can sail. If you don't, you're going to motor around. And if you did not rent a boat, bareboat, that means that you are also paying for a skipper, and generally speaking about $200 a day, plus you pay all the food including the skipper's food. And I don't know about the beverage thing. We try to keep that to a minimum, the amount of alcohol that he drank, and seemed to me that he pretty much took care of that on his own. There were only a few times that we actually all ate out together. At any rate, so one of the systems are that they will motor you around, or you'll sail about, and then you'll stop at a little cove like we did here, and then you'll jump in the water and you'll have a little bit of a swim for about an hour, and about 2 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon you'll make way for a place to harbor. I mean, the water is, we're here in June and it's a little bit frisky. It's probably in the neighborhood about 70, 72 degrees perhaps. Refreshing when you jump in. I found this rather fascinating, the colors, the sunlight hitting these little micro fish, if you will. I thought it created a great little pattern. I mean, my wife, who wasn't as involved with the actual mechanics of sailing, found it to be a lot of sitting around, and she kind of flat out was a little bit bored. And I would also say that unless you are in a part of Greece where you have really cool islands, really cool little villages that you go to visit, it's kind of generic, and it's not the most exciting places to go, because you don't have a concept of, if you are in Piraeus, for example, which is just south of Athens, well, how long or how far can you sail in a week with even the best conditions? And you find that you really have to stay somewhat in the local area, so you're not going to get to go to some of the really cool islands. I think from Piraeus, the furthest that you can probably go out is to Hydra. And then you have to slowly make your way back, because that could almost be 2 days just to get to Hydra. And but anyway, this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what you might expect if you are taking a sailing cruise. I do think that it is an oversold idea. It's quite expensive. They've sort of sold it with a bit of a panache, and people have bought it, and it sounds kind of romantic. Oh, we're going to go sail in the Greek islands for a week. But the reality of it is, there is a lot of sitting around. The spaces are cramped. It's difficult to sleep because in this part of the country they don't have air conditioning on the boats, even though it does get cool in the evenings, but it can be kind of warm in the cabin, certainly during the day, where it's not comfortable to go ahead and jump in and take a little nap or something. It's kind of a step up from RV camping, except that you're doing it on the water. And again, I'm going to reiterate that you will pay the same amount whether you have no wind at all and all you do is motor from island to island, or you have such high winds that you can't sail, and then you have to put yourself and moor yourself in a harbor, a safe harbor, if you will, because they're uninclined to take on the challenge if the weather is too high, like an F4 and F5, for example. I think at F3, which I think is about 40 knots of wind, is about the highest that they'll let you sail in. You know, there are certainly cool aspects to this whole idea. I think in retrospect, it probably would have been better to have picked sailing spots of areas that I was far more genuinely interested in sailing to, or just had more interesting little villages. This here we're coming up to Methana, and it gets its name because apparently there was a lot of methane from volcanic activity on this island at one point. Methana. It's not a terribly interesting town. It's a little bit blown out, to be honest. But again, it's sort of one of those things that after you've been out motoring or sailing for about 4 to 6 hours, you have to find your way to a harbor. We did talk to the captain about just finding a cool little bay and setting anchor, and I think they're quite uninclined to do that. And it's also, you know, you do have unless you are renting the boat, bareboat, you have this complete stranger with you on the boat, which is a comment in itself that you have to be quite careful in. So if you're going to rent a boat with a skipper, you really have to ask questions on the personality and the compatibility of who that skipper is. And I would say in our case, we probably had really different ideas of what we had expectations for on this trip. It was almost as if he had kind of a standard idea, a standard itinerary, and I don't think he quite understood the difference between, for example, a town like Methana. Oh, it's just fine. No, but for us, it's kind of boring. It's lacking the real character of small Greek little fishing villages that we were more interested in seeing. So there are some complications with this sailing, and it's quite expensive. I mean, we sort of went bed and blue an alternative route, and even the alternative route, it's still for a week. I think it was close to, probably with everything, with gas and food, is probably close to $4,000 for the week. And I would almost say that with all of the driving or motoring, if you will, with the boat that you do, you're almost better just to forget the captain. That's $200 a day right there, plus the food. Just get a motorboat and go from island to island if you are not a certified skipper. This is Methana. This is sort of a bit of a walking tour, and you can see what I mean. It is a little bit. It's not exactly a cute little fishing village or anything. It's as we go into the interior, you'll see that it's a little bit more blown out. But this is an example of where you may stay on your tour of the Greek islands. Here we are, we're going into the interior a little bit more, going to a grocery store to get some extra provisions. I mean, it does have some charm. Certainly not inundated with tourists, correct?